welcome to this, our, I believe, 11th show. We're glad to have you with us. I'm Jacob, and today I'm joined by...
And
John.
Jamie.
And Zach. Good to know we're still there.
Yeah, it's glad to have you with us. So, typically, as we do, let's get the episode started with a little bit of hobby progress. What's everybody been up to this last week?
Well, I got slammed at work, so I didn't get a lot done this week. I managed to mask off 6 of the rhinos. I'm currently masking off another one right now. And then I realized that I was kind of out of Ultramarines blue for airbrush, so I went and found some. AK just came out with the new triad colors, and so I picked those up. They actually work really well. They require a little bit of thinning. They claim they're airbrush ready, but they're not. Then I managed to apply that to all of the jet bikes, all of the suzerains that I've picked out for Ultramarinesing the last Word Bearers list I made, and then the characters and the jet bike riders, and then I managed to then shadow all those, and then highlight all those, and then filter all those. So the jet bikes, the jet bike riders, and the infantry characters, apart from a couple chaplains I still need to build, are all blue applied. The jet bikes got a little bit of masking done, so I kept the white pre-shading on one of the parts because I like to have it, all the kind of recessed bits on my Ultramarine tanks be bright white. So I kept that on those, but I'll be having some more busy weeks for the next couple of weeks. I'm doing a lot of traveling for work. And so my goal was to get all that stuff done so that I could bring it with me and start doing the decals and weathering in hotel rooms over the next couple of weeks. So I got all that accomplished. So nice slow week.
Yeah, for a busy week though, still sounds like you got a lot done, relatively speaking.
Yeah. What about you, Jacob?
This week I ended up finishing up my first 4 Clan Wolf models, getting them, well, yeah, first 4, getting them through oil weathering, checked, processed with a couple different people about using like the Wonder Wash versus black oil weathering versus like I used kind of an umber. Really pleased with the results from the burner, so that's that way for. And then past that, spent a little bit of time this week getting some paint my clones. I think one trooper. Pretty pleased with how that scheme came together and what time it took and the effect it ended up with. The first month quite done, but kept me moving forward. And then continued to get my golds worked up for base coats for the 1,000. I also got a battle report, so that was a pretty good time. Tried out an Alpha Legion list, not just some proxies up against buddies, Iron Hands, Bitter Iron.
Cool. So I guess I'll go next. My week was pretty light. I got the white pre-shading done on my Kratos, and that's about it. Unfortunately, I've been dealing with COVID through the house and isolating and a bunch of other stuff. Now I did get a purchase in. So I had ordered the Sector Imperialis bases to do all of my Word Bears in, so I got all of those in at the hobby store, so I now have all my bases. So I think the only thing I'm waiting for to finish having everything to build the art list I want to start with is my Cromlech order. I don't know how long it's going to take to ship from Poland, but it's been over a week, so I'd expect it in probably some point.
Yeah, that's about how long it took mine. Mine took about 2.5 weeks. It took them longer to pack it than it did to ship it, honestly.
And then, so that'll have everything I need to build. I did, in exchange for some first service printing, Buddy gave me a bunch of files from this Dragon's Rest 3D printing files. And so I'm printing a bunch of stuff for him and printing some stuff for myself at the same time. So they do have a missile silo that opens and closes and has missiles in there. And I was able to print that out, and I was really happy with how it came out. The way they got these files designed and set up, just even with the PLA printer, it's coming out really nice and crisp files and prints and looking good. And next up, I'm printing for him. There's a little like jump ship kind of thing. He's got a landing pad, and he wants the ship printed up for it. So I started printing on that this week and spliced up all the files. So it's pretty cool. They have a modular vehicle system. So they have like a big like digger and then a transport and then a big flyer and a small flyer. You can go through and find the recipe, so to speak, of all the different files to print out the various versions of it. And so there's a small like jump ship that I'm gonna be printing up that looks pretty cool. I got the 2 engines printed already. Printers going in the background. And then this evening I got my magnets in to magnetize the sponson weapons on the Kratos. And then I'm going to start cutting up my Zephon model because I'm going to de-bionics him and make him a normal guy instead of a bionics guy, and then switch his sword out for a hammer. And that's going to be my Praetor model, is going to be a modified Zephon model. It'll be easy to work with. It's all plastic, so I'm just taking bits off of one of the Mark 6 mains from the box that'll replace all the bionic stuff. So that's what I got going on.
Very impressive. Zach? Jamie?
Oh, blue tongue. Anyways, this is Jamie. So we had our first, I guess you would call it maybe our first Accountability Buddies video game night with Jacob and
it was Nick. Yeah.
It was Nick on Thursday night, which was fun. I hadn't really gotten to play with anybody in a while, so I had fun with that. I've been doing painting of another type. My wife has me painting the exterior of our house, and so I got about another third of that done. And then I have what's called Jamie's used card lot of rhinos going. I think I'm working on my 9th, 10th, and 11th rhino chassis, and then I've got a Damocles Command rhino that I'm redoing. And then I started building out the 4 sabers that I've got, saber tanks. So it's like all little small tanks going all the time right now. And I'm kind of waiting on parts for other squads that I've already got built and kind of base coated. But the rhinos are coming along. They aren't taking me very, very long because they're Dark Angels. So black paint them and then kind of weather them up and about done. So they actually go pretty quick. It's just there's so many of them that I've got to do. And there's a couple that I'm redoing that I didn't like how I had painted them before. So I also had a decent sized order of stuff coming in for me and 3 other guys. And so I'm waiting on a bunch of Contemptor and Leviathan weapons and stuff to build some breacher squads and tons of swords because Dark Angel. And then I've started trying to figure out if I'm going to do like the Age of Destruction box set. I really haven't opened up other than the book. I'm kind of saving that for a separate army. So I've been kind of looking into Alpha Legion, what I need to do to kind of build that out of that.
Having gotten my first Alpha Legion game in last night, I can do readily that stacking the Alpha Legion trait with Shroud Bombs is hilarious.
Okay. I know one thing. I had a question for you all. I ordered for the first time from Conversion World. Has anybody ordered from in the past?
I have not.
Oh yeah, I've ordered a bunch of them.
What's the ship time?
Almost a month.
Okay.
Yeah, it's honestly one of the worst as far as ordering times, and he was also one of the worst ones for packing too. But I think I hit him during like a sale or something. So yeah, it took almost a month from the order date.
Okay, that's pretty much it.
So wait, what did you guys play on your video game night?
We were doing Destiny 2. It was Iron Banner was so Nick wanted to run that, and that's what we ran that for a couple hours or whatever to get Nick leveled up.
Probably got about 2 hours. And about every 4 matches it starts.
Yeah,
and I mean like we had a pretty decent time. I mean like we were actually I usually get I don't like playing PvP and video games very much, and we were actually having a pretty decent.
Not bad. I played the original Destiny. I played Destiny 2 shortly after it came back out, and I just waited just long enough to get all my gear that I had from Destiny 1, and then I was done. I put it away.
So there was a major expansion for it this year that kind of redid a lot of the systems in it. It's a lot better placed than it was, say, like a year ago or even 2 years ago. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still issues, but it's actually they've made it a lot more playable. I mean, there's a lot more. A lot of stuff has like become a lot more usable.
When Dark Tide drops, I'll definitely join y'all on that.
Yeah,
I know we had No, it's okay. We had a couple games as a group that we've tried to jump into. There was
Joe and I were playing Fallout 76 for a while.
Yep.
Yeah, I never got into it. I said I would, and I didn't. No, I was thinking more of what was it? The Star Wars Squadrons.
Oh yeah, the Squadrons. That was fun.
Yeah, did that for a little bit.
The Burt Cannon.
Yeah, there was what else? Oh, we all jumped into Cyberpunk, but that didn't ever become multiplayer. So
yeah, you were gung ho into Anthem. I think you and Pretty and a couple others got into that, and I was like,
man, yeah. I
fell
played
apart
Anthem
quick.
for the first 6 weeks, and I had some of the best 60 hours of gameplay I'd ever had. And then I was like, cool, I'll come back in a year when they fix it.
Yeah.
Little did you know.
Yeah, EA was just like, we just don't want to spend any money on it. Bye.
Yo.
Yep. It had potential, and then they just kind of there's dropping the ball, and then there's just like whatever they did. So
I did want to jumping back to the hobby side. I wanted to throw out a tip that I figured out, thanks really to John actually. So I was working on some Mark 6 Marines, and I was building out the shoulder pad, and I'd gone to using the Testors hobby cement, plastic cement with a little tube with a metal nozzle on it. And so I was using that glue in the shoulder pads together. And the way it was melting the glue, it was smashing it together. It was melting it too much. And so I was getting a bulge there, right? So I didn't have a divot left where the seam was. I had a bulge of cement smashed out. So he's like, well, I didn't have that. Tried, different plastic cement. So I pulled out, I have this Plastruct bonding stuff, which is the brush-on type of cement. And so I did a bunch of the shoulder pads with that brush-on cement, and it doesn't melt it quite as strongly. So you get a nice tight, it's not like a gap where you need to fill it with green stuff or anything. But it doesn't bulge it out as the way that the Testors was when it was melting it so aggressively. So just a tip, if you're seeing issues with that, maybe try that brush-on cement rather than the kind with the tube. It might help.
Yeah, I switched to the Tamiya Super Thin a while ago. I was using it just like sparingly, and then I've just I used to use like super glue all the time, every time, and I've pretty much just switched that to Tamiya Super Thin unless it's something that requires super glue now.
Yeah, I use the plastic cement, but I just have different kinds of it. The Testors with the tube is so convenient. Every now and again, you got to stick a wire down in there to clear the tube out, but it just works so well.
You could use a lighter if you want,
but
if you're dangerous. I mean,
but,
if you want to live dangerously, you can just. That's what I used to do because I have the black one. The blue one is German. I saw it at the shop the other day, but I didn't pick it up because I'm happy with that Tamiya. But yeah, I used to just run a lighter over it because I keep lighters for stretch sprue. I've never smoked anything, but just run that lighter over it and squeeze it really hard, and when it starts spitting fire, then you're done.
Yeah, well, I even at some point I picked up some of the Games Workshop plastic cement, and I actually did a test, and I had that one, the black Testors, and the cement kind, brush-on kind, and the other two were pretty equivalent, and this one was way better. So I'm sure that Super Thin is pretty close to this.
Yeah. A lot of companies make it. It's just brushable, and it's in a little green cap and a square bottle. I like the square bottle from Tamiya because I know I'm not going to dump it. I've seen a lot of horror stories, and I remember I've dumped Pro Weld was the good stuff back in the day before they started. That's a whole nother story that I have that I could tell you all about.
This is one that I've had used from hobby stores back ages and ages and ages ago when I was first getting into building wargaming kits. So early 90s, the same brand has been around forever.
I'd say the graphics on that bottle look like they're from the 90s.
But this was bought at my local within the last year.
Really?
Yeah. I think they're railroader, so they're not worried about their graphics as much as word of mouth sales, I think.
Yeah, up in Flint, there's a hobby store, Riders, that I think still carries that because they carry all the Plastruct, plastic stuff.
Riders was where I first started buying it, but they carry it over at Games Plus over here by me.
Yeah, okay. Well, Games Plus is a good store.
Games Plus,
like everything.
The fact
Good
that
lord.
Games Plus is a mile away from me is very dangerous and awesome at the same time. Well, they're the ones I sold all my Magic cards to, so I still have a decent chunk of my almost $3,000 worth of store credit,
Oh wow.
which is really handy too. Like, so ordering the bases, the Games Plus or the Games Workshop bases, right? That's part of the reason why I decided to go with that is the base concept for this army because I haven't done any with it, but it's all on store credit for my Magic card, so it works out really well.
Yeah, I bought a bunch of those plaster up like I-beams and pipes and stuff just
Yep.
for basing. So
Back in the day, my first piece of terrain I ever did, there was a template in White Dwarf to make a bunker. And so I took that template and I made the bunker. And it's just a square pillbox bunker. And then so I made it out of cardboard using that template. And then I took an I-beam, one of those plastic I-beams, and I put it all around the top. And then
Yeah.
I took, the cross stitch stuff and cut that to shape to go inside. So it had like a graded floor on the inside of it. And so,
like the diamond plate?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, not diamond plate. It's just cross
Green
hatch. So
grading.
it just looks like grading. I think it's for cross stitch, right? It's a little plastic stuff.
Yep.
And so it's really, I've done that with other Necromunda terrain and different things over time. But yeah, so that was and then because I was playing Eldar and bunkers were bunkers at that point in time, it was just a piece of war gear. I put a bunch of painted up and put Eldar decals on it. I had that until recently. And I think it got mangled in one of my travel moves. And so I finally threw it away because I realized I wasn't going to fix it because I could just 3D print a better bunker. But
Yeah.
that was one of those things that I hate getting old because the nostalgia in me wants to keep crap like that. And then I realized, well, no, let's just get rid of it.
Yep.
So, hey, I see Duncan hopped on. Glad to hear you're
Hey.
feeling well enough to jump on here. And how are you doing this evening? We're kind of going on, finishing hobby progress and just kind of talking. So, what you got for hobby progress since we're right there?
I don't know. Can you all actually hear me?
Yep.
I can.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, you're all so lucky. Sorry, I'm a little out of it on the medication that I just got stuffed into me. Let's see here.
Does that mean that Jacob needs to have his finger on or a little notepad to write down the time of the recording?
Oh, there we go.
It begins.
Sorry about that.
Yes, you should.
Okay, so hobby progress. I finished my Reaver squad. They're done, other than having bases, which should be here who knows when. I got the owner of Elric's Hobbies actually called me to apologize for my bases not being here yet. So hopefully they'll be here the next day or two.
That's
tell me-
customer service.
Tell him you know who he's dealing with. He doesn't know who he's messing with.
Compared to something that'll come up later in the show, that's amazing customer.
No, I didn't tell him that. I did tell him that I now have, this will technically be my 4th Heresy army based entirely with his stuff. So he was kind of happy with that.
Oh wow.
And because of the trouble, he's also kicking me some of the custom Elric's dice they're doing, which was really kind of him. So I'm looking forward to seeing those.
Did you mention
Elric-
we do a
Elric's
hot
making dice
podcast
now?
as a sponsor?
I'm sorry, say again?
Go ahead, Zach.
I was going to say Elric's makes dice now.
I don't know. He says he is, so
Oh.
I'll post pictures once I get them.
Well, hopefully that's not a spoiler or anything like that. When that you don't have any. You didn't sign any non-disclosure things, did you?
No, I did not sign an
Okay.
NDA.
And then post it all on social media for everyone to see. Wait,
No, I'm pretty sure I would do that anyway.
you should have told him we have a podcast that you do that he could sponsor.
I would love to do that, except honestly, he called me at like 7:30 on Friday, and I was like, "That's different. I'm actually making dinner." But cool. So anyway, that was that. I found in my pile of random bits and stuff that has been accumulating in a box or boxes, I've discovered that I have 10 pairs of Mark II legs. I have way more torsos and heads than I need for the Sons of Horus at this moment. So I pulled out 10 different heads for them, 10 different torsos, backpacks, shoulder pads, and close combat weapons. So I guess the next thing I'll do is go ahead and assemble Despoiler Squad number 2. I've already got my Master of Signal that I'm working on. Converting that guy out of a I'm using the sensor command bit from one of the rapier guns. The hand from one of those crewmen. I'm using that on him. This is the Sons of Horus command guy who normally carries an axe and a banner. So I'm putting the command digital bit in his banner hand, and I'm gonna give him his regular axe so he can be my master signal. I've got another apothecary assembled and ready to start getting glued to his cork for working on. But other than that, don't really have a lot of hobby progress. I may be a little bit out of it, obviously with the stuff that got pumped into me today at the hospital. Beyond that,
just glad you didn't have to stay, and you're well enough to be on here at least. So,
well, they pumped me full of Zofran to kill some of the nausea and painkillers to kill the pain. So, yeah, we'll see. Other than that, theory crafted several lists, talked with several people. I did not get to go to play the 30K thing in Lexington on Saturday because, strangely enough, I wasn't feeling all that good. I don't know why. So, other than that, that's all I got. Take it away, whoever's next.
I think that's me. I've been gone from kind of the hangouts for like a month now. But all I've really done is just put together my Age of Darkness box set. I put 10 of my Mark 6 guys together as they were meant to be, and then everything else I've been kit bashing with different helmets and backpacks and shoulder pads and everything else, trying to make them look a little more varied rather than just having a whole bunch of other things. Bought myself a Demos Rhino and putting that together, and that's really been it. Unless you really want to hear about like work stuff or how I filled out my FAFSA stuff and registered for next semester for college, but that's it.
Sure, go ahead and tell me how you registered on the FAFSA. There's a specific box there that has I think it's a 9-digit code. If you can just give me that 9-digit code, that'd be really nice.
Sure. I'll as a matter of fact, I'll send it to you in a DM.
Yes,
wait,
yes.
FAFSA.
Oh, you can't send it in a DM. It'll get filtered out.
Oh, okay. Well, that sucks.
Are we talking about the company that does Shadowrun back in the day? FAFSA?
Yes,
yes, that's it.
That's it.
So what level
Dan, you're fired.
do you get? What?
I said, Dan, you're fired.
Well, that's not surprising.
So yeah, no, I did my financial aid stuff and got registered for my next semester of school. I've been working and training a new person at work, and yeah, that's been it. So it's been crazy, work related.
For you, sir.
So, if I'm correct, we did have a little bit of listener mail. Am I correct on that?
We did.
Somebody want to play that for us, and we can talk about that here?
Yep, I got you. Tell me if it's coming in.
What's going on? It's your boy Derek from Texas. A quick shout out. So, I was sat with my new rulebook, trying to uninstall the old Age of Darkness rule set and install the new rules, trying to avoid cross-contamination of like edition shock, things like that. When I noticed on page 238 under Fearless, it says, units containing one or more models with the Fearless special rule cannot use any reactions that grant a cover save, armor save, invulnerable save, or damage mitigation roll of any kind. So what this means, for example, Corvus Corax, or a unit he's in, cannot use the Fade to Black advanced reaction since it grants Shrouded. And similarly, a unit that includes Angron, as well as Red Butchers, cannot use the World Eater's advanced reaction, since it grants Feel No Pain, also a damage mitigation roll. I don't really hear anyone else discussing this, meaning either this small paragraph was overlooked, or more likely everybody else is already aware of this, internalized this, and moved on, and I'm just kind of late to the game. Either way, what are some other seemingly small changes that you think will have a larger impact? Thanks for letting me chime in like this, and keep up the good work with the hobby.
So I think...
go ahead.
Yeah, I would definitely house rule that Korax can do his thing, and I don't know, Angron, he's always been weird as far as Feel No Pain goes. Like, he got it from Sirlac, which I never agreed with, but...
And then he didn't.
Yeah, and then he didn't. I think other goofy things that no one seems to pick up on is Goonhammer published that article today where they're talking about line units, and everyone seems to overlook the complete disappearance of fire points from the Rhino.
I did. I didn't.
We mentioned that before on here, actually.
Yeah, but people I keep seeing people talking about, like, I'm just going to throw melta guns and a rhino and drive it around the backfield and blow things up. I'm like, are you though?
Well, to be fair, people are also trying to argue that Fury of the Legion is 4 shots for some reason too. So, which is not what the English language says that rule should be. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I think this goes back to the whole we need an FAQ. We need an FAQ now.
I concur. We need an FAQ. There's been a couple strange things out there that don't make a lot of sense in the rulebook. And I actually had written something down that I wanted to mention for when this topic came up. Unfortunately, I wrote it on a thing that I can't figure out where I put it, and I don't remember what it is right in this moment. So, the heck with me.
That's all right. Yeah, it was definitely interesting to see that. My hope or my thought at some level is that this is consequences of them having to make dreadnoughts fearless, and therefore this would prevent dreadnoughts from taking evade reaction. But that's kind of the only reason I can immediately think of.
so one of the ones that came up that is a little interesting to me is certainly it seems like snipers, nemesis bolters, or whatever you want to call them, that are, I guess, precision shot is the rule. So if you have a Primarch in a command squad retinue, when you shoot, you wound at the majority toughness of the unit. So at that point, sure, the Primarchs have their Primarch save, but if you got a retinue, you're wounding a Primarch at 4 typically, which is the retinue unit that the Primarch's running around in. And so because the precision shot comes at the assigned wounds point, then you can start trying to sniper off and roll a whole bunch of saves for a Primarch without having to have a weapon that's wounding him on the Primarch's higher toughness. So that's one that I picked out that I thought was kind of interesting, which may be actually the way it's supposed to work, but it just makes precision shots that much a little more powerful.
I can actually see that being a working as intended thing, because he is being there escorted by his boys, and his boys are going to voluntarily pop in front of rounds for him if possible. I mean, it's not like there's a real look out, sir, at this point, so that makes sense, at least to me.
Except they're not jumping in front of it. If anything, they're technically making them weaker.
Yeah, but you're just pretty much stuffing the bullets onto them instead of him, other than for precisions. So I'm referring to the wounding everybody, but not the precisions part.
Yeah,
the precision part there definitely is different.
Yeah. So that was one that caught my attention and seems to be working as intended, but it's an interesting dynamic, I guess, to me.
One that I've noticed, because I just remembered it finally, land speeders have chainswords, which means technically that world leaders land speeders get to replace their chainsword with a chain axe.
Isn't that because they're cavalry?
Yep.
Yeah, that's because they're cavalry.
I don't see that as
interesting.
being crazy or anything.
No, I don't see it as crazy. I just see it as something that a lot of people are actually missing. Because I actually talked to one guy yesterday evening on one of the Facebook groups, and he was talking about how his he forgot he had chainswords on his cavalry speeder that he used to charge into a tactical squad, and forgot to use the shred rule. And I was like, well, technically you don't have a chainsword, you have a chain axe. So
you know, it doesn't have chain swords? Attack bikes.
Please stop! They're already dead.
Right?
Beating that dead horse.
I'm sorry. I converted 15 of them out of 15 land speeders, so I get to complain a bit.
Yep, I did a squad of what, 5, 6?
Yeah, 5.
Yeah.
You're also the one person I've ever seen that did the assault cannon Fomentarus.
So Dan, I was just that rule you were talking about, that sniping. I was just thinking about that. I don't know if other legions have it, but the Dark Angels with if you have some of the Deathwing companion or retinues for some of the if anything's got a Master of Legion, they have a save rule that allows them to basically ignore sniper and precision on that unit. So if you have Lion in a group with the Deathwing will actually take the shots totally separate from the Lion. Now there may be other ones and I still have to read a bit more on it, but I know there's at least 3 units in it. Like if you go with the FAQ group that came out, and then there's at least 1 in the main book for the Dark Angel.
Yeah, I think the only thing suzerain have, for example, that can be they're the Ultramarines one is just that they're all characters.
Yeah, the rule is called Deathsworn Companions. Any unit that includes at least 1 model of this special rule ignores the effects of precision strikes, precision shots, and sniper special rules, and casualties from shooting attacks and melee attacks are always allotted to the model of the controlling player's choice.
Which would tend to imply, again, that it's working as intended.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the suzerain thing is so that way when your Praetor takes a hit and dies from the squad he's with, he dies. That squad dies. He goes join someone else. He's got a wound on him. That way you don't have to kill the Praetor before killing the new squad he joined. So the character rules make sense in a way. I mean, they're with the suzerains and the Deathsworn and other things. You're going to run into goofy little interactions like that. But I think, like Dan says, it's working as intended.
We did also have one of us mention a question, and I believe it was regarding Death Guard and their tanks.
Yeah. Chris over in Europe.
Yeah.
European Chris.
Yeah, so for clarity's sake, we went back and we reread Remorseless, which is the Legions of Astartes Death Guard special. It states that a model with this special that does not have the cavalry unit type or artillery unit subtype ignores any modifiers or restrictions on moving during the movement phase, including modifiers imposed by terrain or restriction from rules such as pinning, which would normally stop them from moving, as long as the model does not run or make use of another alternative form as a jump pack, disembarking, or deploying via deep. Furthermore, as long as the model has not run or used another alternative form of movement in the controlling player's movement phase, it is counted as stationary when making shooting attacks until the start of the controlling's turn. This special rule does not affect whether or not a model may make a charge, and does not allow models with the vehicle unit type to ignore the effects of immobilized, but does allow them to move even when under the effect of crew stun on the vehicle damage table. So, that seems generally relatively unambiguous as to your tanks in Death Guard are always treated as stationary for the purpose of shooting.
Yeah, it seems I don't see anything that makes that not clear that that's the way it should work.
Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but definitely interesting to get the chance to read through it and double check and confirm.
Oh, the other one that we were discussing in another chat has to do with the Alpha Legion and triggering reactions, right?
Yep.
So there's a little ambiguity there, so that I don't remember the exact wording, but it says that when you
anytime you measure from an enemy unit to an Alpha, it is 2 inches further.
But the wording for reactions is triggered reactions. So the question really there is do you have to take that extra 2 inches into account to determine if a unit can react, or is it once it's reacted based on a normal distance, then you add the 2 inches for shooting resolution, movement resolution, whatever happens after that charge. And so I'm not that one. It really is ambiguous, right? I
didn't think it was particularly ambiguous because it says anytime you measure from an enemy model to. It doesn't say for the purposes of shooting attacks, which is how shroud bombs are worded. It's any time. So technically speaking, you're even like 2 inches further away when their vehicles explode.
I don't think you would be, because that's not an attack, and you're not measuring it from your enemy. You're measuring the actual.
It does not say for attacks. It just says from enemy model to Alpha. I'll double check that, but
it specifically. So I've got it. A model with this special is always considered to be 2 inches further away than it actually is when measuring range to it from any enemy model for the purpose of resolving a shoot attack, charge, or any reaction declared by an enemy model or unit. This is cumulative with other range modifiers. So the question there is it for the purpose of any reaction or for the purpose of any reaction already declared?
I mean, I think when it says any reaction.
Yeah, I think it definitely affects reactions, but I don't think it affects vehicles blowing up because it's
Well,
not one of those listed.
Yes, yeah,
But the
I did
point
miss
is,
that clause.
but the point is reaction declared. So if I can only do a reaction if I'm within 12 inches of you and I'm 11 inches away, do I count the 2 inches so it makes me 13, or am I at 11 so I can declare the reaction and then I have to measure 13 inches for resolving it?
I mean,
Right?
given that you can pre-measure at any time, it should be unambiguous as to whether or not you want to declare that you're reacting.
Yeah.
Well, but that's the point, right? So the depending on the way the English language is, it could mean that you're 12 inches away, so you can't declare the reaction because you're 13 inches away instead of 11, or it could be that you declare it and then the resolution of that reaction counts as 13 inches instead of 11. It's not clear. I don't know. I would allow. I would say. I don't know. I would say I would probably play it if I was playing again because I'm not going to be playing Alpha Legion. I would play it that if I'm 11 inches away and it has to be 10 inches for me to react, that I couldn't react just for ease of gameplay. But I'm not sure that's. It's just not clear that that's the intention of it necessarily.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
I don't really see how it would matter. Just basically, it reduces your reaction range for some reactions from 12 to 10. Does that make sense?
It does.
I think
But
Dan's worried about precluding himself from reacting because there are some reactions that have a range.
Yeah, and that's he indicated like, well, what happens if I measure and it looks like 9 inches, and then I use my reaction, but it turns out that because of the Alpha Legion rule, suddenly it's 13 inches. Does it just eat my reaction?
Well, I mean I get it. You wouldn't lose the reaction if you're not able to do it because you're outside of distance. But does it preclude that reaction altogether? So, if you have to be within 12 inches to declare a reaction in the first place, the wording of that does not that indicates you can still declare that reaction. You just resolve it as if you're 13 instead of 11. But it is ambiguous enough that you could play it either way.
I would hope that would be a resolution, not an actual declaring, because then
Yeah.
if it were resolution, it would come in based off of what the reaction is. But if it were just being able to declare, then that rules out a lot of things.
Yeah, and in kind of a goofy way too.
Yeah, they just
So I don't know. That's one that I think could be some clarification from someone within my opinion. And it's a player agency, right? So if you aren't if the 2 inches is every time you measure to it, it's 12 inches away, then you can use that to even more advantage as an Alpha Legion player by always putting yourself in that extra 2 inch range where, so I deep strike down and I deep strike 11 inches away and I still have a charge, but they can, shoot me with their guns that have 12-inch shooting range, for example, with an augury scan.
I see what you're getting at there. I think just the rule of reality is just anything that's going to have a 12-inch reaction range against them, period, measure. If it's not within 10, don't react.
Yeah. All right, so anybody else got any rules things, or are we going to jump into a couple of you that got to play talking about how your games went and what you guys learned or what came out of that?
Yeah, I'm ready to move forward if everybody else is.
Rally forth.
Yeah, so I got my first game of the edition in actually this Saturday. Played 3,000 points, myself and Alpha Legion versus a buddy playing 3,000 Right of Bitter Iron Hand. My list ended up being Alfarius, 10 stolen pyroclasts through the rewards of treason. Alfarius picking Infiltrate for himself, these pyroclasts, and then we'll get to the other two here in a second. There was a Saboteur attached to a Headhunter troop squad because I was playing Headhunter Leviathan. I just gave them a Multi-Melta, and then I took Exodus and put him with a Headhunter squad. I took 3 5-man Nemesis Recon teams. I brought a Talon of 3 Contemptor Dreadnoughts with Gravis Multi-Melta and Palm-mounted Meltagun. I took 2 javelins, and there were supposed to be 5 Lernaeans with a dagger on the sergeant and a conversion beamer, but those didn't end up getting placed on the table, totally blank. My opponent had brought a Iron Father, a Jump Pack Moritat with dual Grav Shredder, and a Leviathan Librarian. He attached the Warlord, chose for this one Silver Iron Will, and the Moritat to a 20-man Immortal Squads with 4 Meltaguns, Volkites on everybody else, and then Thunderhammer Sergeant, and then attached the Librarian to a second 20-man squad the same. He had a 10-man Immortal Squad, 2 Meltaguns, Volkites, everybody else, Thunderhammer Sergeant, and 1 Contemptor with Gravis Laz and Grav Shredder, a Daradeo with Aeolus Missile Launcher and the Arachnus Las Cannon, and then a Leviathan. And I think he took the Snippy Claw, the Melta, and the Volkite and Phosphex upgrades. Fully loaded. We ended up rolling longboard edges. So we ended up kind of squared off in a pretty dense urban table that Ryan's got. Long and the short takeaways being, between this game and a couple others that I watched people playing that night, terrain actually slowing you down, as opposed to last edition where maybe it slowed you down, that ended up being a big deal over the course of a day. Leaving his Immortals to get really bogged down and pushing in 5 inches at a time instead of 7 inches at a time bought me a lot of breathing room. Similarly, I felt like I really enjoyed the aspect of the army where I had infiltrated basically every model except the 2 single javelins, and those I got to redeploy courtesy of Alfarius's Warlord trait. So it felt similar to using a drop pod based army, where I had a lot of agency in my deployment. Unfortunately, the list kind of lived or died based on save denial against Iron Hands, especially with what the Medusa Nipples have going for them, where they can stack up to a 4-up Feel No Pain after a 5-up Invulnerable save, and you do not instant death them unless you have a Las Cannon. That ended up putting my army in a really bad spot for the game. There was one particular moment that really stood out to me where my Dreadnought, one of my 3, so one got obliterated immediately by the Grav Shredder Moritat, and I believe we had talked about on the show before that it's unfortunate to see Iron Hands both get the best way in the game to deal with a Dreadnought, as well as the trait that they do get that's allowed to apply to Dreadnought, but what that is. So Dreadnought got up in his Immortal's face, fired at them, didn't kill anybody, because he didn't have any las cannons, and so between 5-up Invulns and everything else, couldn't kill anybody. They returned fire, took 2 wounds off the Dreadnought, and when I went to charge, he used his Legion-specific reaction, which lets him shoot twice, but at the cost of gaining Gets Hot. And he, understandably, removed the last force from my Dreadnought. I was pretty concerned about watching that happen, to the point where I asked myself, what would I do if I was World Eaters and I didn't have a way to win the game outside of the assault? And he was kind of, unfortunately, at a lot of words to that. Yeah. So, I ended up, unfortunately, in a position where his Librarian, one of my squads almost immediately, and by not bringing the Lernaeans, I didn't have a scoring choice that could advance a claim, a point that I basically didn't start the game on top of, let alone hold it for any length of time. So by the start of turn 3, so if we would have started his 3rd turn, he would have been up 6 points to my 2. And that was just going to be a deep hole for me to try to claw out of with seemingly 2 realistic Lord. I had neither the close combat prowess to get like Power Fists, Thunderhammers, Feel No Pain in close combat, and I just didn't have the base of firepower to be able to deny him his save at range. So kind of just ended up a loser match for me all the way around.
But you were playing in essence, what, 400 something points down?
270, I think, which wasn't ideal. I will say that hitting the intersection of the current rendition of Night Fighting Rule being Alpha Legion and having Shred Bombs that was really, really maddening for my opponent to try to play around, because he's like, okay, so if I try to shoot you, I'm like, you are 8 inches back. So the Saboteur and Exodus both came with Shroud Bombs, so my Headhunter teams and all 3 of my recon squads, when targeting for shooting, were 8 inches further back, and you weren't within 16 inches of them, you couldn't fire at all, because that would mean over 24 inches away, and Nightfight would block line of sight to you.
That is a wee bit beastly.
Yeah, I would say that overall I enjoyed my list. I don't know immediately that list is a good fit for me, and so I don't know how other people's list construction is going. And it's got me I'll say apprehensive in advance of game day on the 23rd.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear once we start getting some events pan out and what people have to say about how the games are playing and how various legions and units are stacking up. You know, the one I've definitely got on my radar to get and hear people to go to and hear some results from is Music City Heresy, where it's, as far as I know, it's the first major event in the United States. Well, I guess, John, yours is coming up here too, right, in Texas in a few weeks, 3 weeks or something.
It's this weekend. But yeah, we've only got 1 ticket sold, so if no one else shows, I'm going to be up there just gaming in general in Houston. But
but Music City Heresy sold out, so there definitely is going to be some armies represented, some results. We'll see, right?
Yeah, and we think that we'll get some more tickets sold on our events, because there was another big event that just canceled in Texas, or somewhat locally.
That's cool. Did someone else say they got a game in, or was that Jamie and Ada leave?
I think that was Jamie.
Yeah, it sounds like that may have been Jamie. Before a thought leaves my mind, as we've unfortunately cleared our hobby segment, we made an allusion to this earlier, but definitely wanted to make sure that we talked about it directly.
Sure.
Over the course of the last 2 shows, we talked a lot about different vendors who have different conversion bits. We've talked about some of the sites you may have heard of, like Puppets War or Cromlech, any number of different vendors out there. And unfortunately, it's come to our attention that we probably need to retract any promotion that we've put out there for a particular vendor by the name of Pop Goes the Money. We encourage people to do their own research, but we've had some concerns brought to us regarding issues or matters of scale and customer service, and at the very least it might be worth kind of keeping your distance and following development just to make sure you're not going to be sinking into bits that aren't going to be what we have been led to believe they are, or may have even had previous experience with seeing.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. And yeah, they definitely saw the pictures, and the stuff was not sized correctly to be able to work with.
Despite having said so on the website.
Despite having said so on the website, and it's kind of unfortunate because they definitely, in the past, I've gotten stuff. Most of us probably have really had decent stuff.
I actually dug up some of my old Kopesh that I was planning to use for 1,000 Kanata Bladical, or just getting them in advance of not knowing if they were actually going to have rules like different legions have, like the Shroud, the Scythe for Death Guard, the Chain Glue stuff. And it fits within margin of error on the Mark IV releases that we had at the time I purchased.
Yeah, it's the same with I have some older Ultramarine swords that he'd made. And while the sword itself is a little big for, I would say, infantry, I put it on my jet bike sergeants, and they looked like something you could actually use from a saddle. So while the weapon itself is a little large, the hands were the right size. So from what we're seeing, even though the website is saying that these items are the right size, it's probably just better to go with maybe another vendor at the moment until this is cleared up.
Yeah, and I was really disappointed with what the response from them was as well, right? Things happen, people aren't satisfied with products, but the response was basically wasn't going to take care of them at all, and it wasn't an issue, which was very disappointing.
Yeah, especially because we're such a niche hobby. It's not like you would get that return business if you did it right.
Yep.
Well, were there any other developments or anything else to report on in the last week?
So yeah, we had a new model.
Go on.
Ish. So I forget, Thursday was it? I think. Well, one day this week anyway. They announced, surprise, surprise, close combat weapon Leviathan in plastic, and close combat weapon sprues. And then today they announced that yesterday maybe, the next Friday or Saturday that goes on pre-order.
Yep.
So it sounds like the plastic close combat dread is going to be here before the ranged one that was previewed in the lead up to the box set release, even that far back. And 2 weeks from now, assuming it's a 1 week pre-order because it's not a full box release or anything, people will be able to have plastic Leviathans or grubby little hands.
Yep,
Very exciting.
it's definitely interesting. I'd also like to point out we got the rules for Cabanda for Heresy.
Yeah, the first demon.
Yep.
Yeah, all 550 points of demonic Lord of War choice of him.
Yep. He's definitely a nasty pile of work to deal with, unless you figure out the right way of doing so. Let me know, everybody, if you ever figure out the right way of dealing with him. Because right now my idea is just feed him to elite infantry and pray.
Because he's what? Tough 8 wounds, 4 up invulnerable save, 3 up armor?
I hate to do this, Duncan. They made a unit specifically for killing demons, and it's not terrible in the PDF that is known for being terrible. You might want to build nullificators.
Yeah, see, I have another theory, and I could be wrong here, but I don't think I am. Same team.
Oh, well, screw you.
I mean, I do play traders for the most part, so yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because didn't Sanguinius beat him in the one encounter they had, or did he beat Sanguinius? I forget how it went. But
Sanguinius beats him up twice. Once on that planet, and then once
Cygnus
on
Prime.
Cygnus Prime, yeah.
He also Sanguinius also loses the first fight to him on Cygnus Prime.
Well, it doesn't count. I mean, he was kind of being assaulted by another demon at the same time. So.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do to take on the angelic boy.
So I'm just hearing that loyalists are just so powerful that it requires double the traders to beat us.
I will say that is a giant model,
right?
And expensive as all get out. Well, was it $355 or something?
It's cheaper than the drill.
True, but yeah, still.
Yeah, he's expensive, but when compared to Angron, that also got previewed this week.
That model's all buddy. I don't know. It looks very current 40K.
It does. And luckily, Angron in 30K has still got his proper Angron model and is not, in my mind, too dopey looking, even if he is a little bit thin.
I really wish that the plastic Primarch demons had more connecting them to their resin counterparts. Like there's so much iconic imagery in those resin models that they could have done a little bit more to connect them. Like I know some of the poses are close, but the armor could have carried over and other things like that. Could have done a little more.
They could have done more. I will agree. But I'm not too terribly upset with what they did do, because you can definitely see some hints of where Angron came from, if not quite as many.
So the one thing I'll say that those two releases have told me is if I'm going to buy any of the big giant demons from Games Workshop Forge World, it's still going to be Bellicor. I think that's the coolest model of all of them. That's just my opinion for what it's worth.
I can dig it. The Bellicor model is pretty nice.
Yeah, I like both of them.
But it does really encourage me to want to see or to actually look forward with hope to what the actual demons rules are. Not to the prices of the demons rules or the demon models, but to the models themselves.
Yeah, that was something we were talking about in another one of our chats. Duncan and I were talking about the militia coming, because if militia are going to be coming out soon, just like the demons, it seems that artillery in general has taken a short stick this edition. Whether that's to survive, to make more things survivable or what. But that's kind of what militia were living and dying on before, was our artillery. So it'll be interesting to see where they try to bring up the lacking units in the militia.
I will agree. I also think that realistically the best way to probably deal with a honking bad boy like that is probably going to be through mass rending. Because no matter what his toughness is, if you're rending on a 4+, you're rending on a 4+, no matter what strength you have.
Yeah, I think the trick's gonna be that weapon skill 8, right? We've already talked about what a big benefit weapon skill 5 is in the game. Basically, almost every Primarch, or the majority of the Primarchs, are still hitting him on 5s only, right? So I mean,
Significant number of them are,
shooting
yeah.
rending, I think, is the thing.
I think pure autocannon fire is what's going to end up bringing someone like that down.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or waiting a couple rounds till he starts getting weaker.
Certainly, with playing
Yeah.
him, your goal is going to be getting him in close combat every turn if you can.
I mean, makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, he's
That's
got
what
that
he's designed
big
for.
14-inch movement speed, which means +3 to his charge.
So how many points is he?
565-ish, something like
Yeah, he's expensive.
Is he 550 or 525? Might be 560. But yeah, he's up there.
He's more expensive than a number of the Primarchs, which kind of makes sense, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for that.
I mean,
for
not
those
all
kind of
Primarchs are
stats,
created
I would
equal.
think so. No, they're not. I don't know. I guess we'll have to just kind of wait to see how the rest of the game kind of fills in with Sisters of Silence and everything else as they come in.
Yeah. And obviously a whole new Demons Army, if they're actually going to bring a whole new Demons Army or line out for us, rather than just the Demon Brutes they gave us before, and Samus, and then the current 40k / AOS Demon models.
I feel like they're just going to roll those in as opposed to making an entirely new separate line of demons. It's my own thought, just on a production basis. But
I hope they don't, because I like the fact that it's new to everybody. It's different, and honestly, I want more demon models that are entirely unique to 30k than to the 40k line. But yeah, I can actually see them doing that.
I don't disagree with you. I just think that you'll still have the same demon models, but they'll have kind of different rules because they haven't been classified yet in 30k. They're still the same things. They exist in the future, in the past, however you want, but it's the same things. It's just knowing what they are.
Yeah. Well, and if you read, the lore, the novels, most of the time they're describing demons. They're pulling from the existing description of a type of demon, and they're, it's like, oh, these are blue horrors and pink horrors, or these are plague bearers, right? I mean,
right. Yeah, because we can recognize them.
They all but call them that to recognize them as what they are. So that would make sense to when the models come out that they base them on the existing modeling. But who knows?
Yep, don't disagree.
So yeah, that's the releases. So anything else I missed?
I don't think you missed anything.
So there was one release that's kind of absent from the US web store. It's the diorama book for Warhammer World. It shows up on every other web store. At least I checked a couple other ones, Germany and France. It seems to show up.
Oh yeah,
but
I'm going to want to get that.
For some reason, it's not showing up on the US store. A couple people called it out on the Facebook group, and then it disappeared from everything. So we'll see what happens there. But I've got the first 2 editions of diorama book, and I always love looking at what you can do with an unlimited budget and unlimited time. So I will definitely pick it up when it becomes available.
My take on that one is not having the other ones and not being as much of a book collector is if it's hard to get and you can't get it in the United States, I'll get a PDF of it at some point. But that's just my two.
My only thought is going to be, yar!
Exactly. So I did see you mention that. I missed that it even came out, and then I saw you had posted up something about wondering if it was going to be available in the States, which is, certainly you'd think they wouldn't be ignoring us, but who knows?
Yeah, and that's kind of how I got to Warhammer World last time, was I used the ticket from that to get into the museum, so I wouldn't mind holding on to a ticket for a while.
I hear you there.
I think that's all the releases, apart from a couple of teaser videos for Dark Tide that came out. And this game's looking a little better every time I see it.
That's probably what's going to take me to get into one of these video game things with you, is when it's a Heresy video game jumping in.
Yeah, this one's
Careful about wishing on a monkey's paw there.
I don't know. I could really go for some Total War Horus Heresy or Total War 40k.
Stop.
What was the one that the Diablo 3 style?
Oh yeah, that was fun.
Looked really awesome. I don't remember, was that multiplayer or was it just individual campaign?
Yeah, it's in
That-
called Inquisitor Martyr. That was really good. They dropped an expansion not too long ago where you can play as a tech priest now instead of just being a death cult or a vindicare or a bruiser, which is basically what I was. I had a cyclone missile launcher on my jetpack and a shotgun for close encounters.
But wasn't there a new one they previewed when they previewed all those video games that's similar though?
Yeah, there's the expansion for that coming. That game has got some legs. It's been out for almost 3 years now, and it's still dropping updates every now and then. But the Dark Tide is the complete customizable. Basically, it's a guard first person shooter, but you get to control a first person like FPS storyline and everything. So you get to pick where you're from and your backstory, and then there's I think the interview said almost over 70,000 lines have been recorded of dialogue for the campaign.
So I think that Duncan was the one that had the idea for kind of the overall topic for this, the meat of this episode. Do you want to? Are you lucid enough to describe it, Duncan, or do you want me to hop in and take the reins for you?
I think I can mostly describe it. So obviously, all of us and everyone listening is going to approach the creation of their army in a way that is unique to them. Some people may do it just because, or may approach it that they want to pattern it after a famous battle. Some people may want to pattern it after a famous company for their successor chapter or what have you. So everyone's going to go at it differently for creating an army they feel is unique to them, fluffy to hopefully their opponent, and amongst us at least, we would consider something that's a fun army to play for you and a fun army that's not going to be too over the top ridiculous for your opponent to encounter either. So to create this, I figured we could all talk about why we created the army we create, present a 3,000 point list, what your thought was creating it, why you would enjoy playing it, why you think it's something that you would actually enjoy and hope your opponent would enjoy.
So I can say that I for one, at least in the previous edition, kind of tended to pick a legion and a rite of war at about this. I would either get inspiration from a unit entry sometimes, and then like that would send me going, okay, what rite of war can this thing work in, or what legion is this super icon? That's my opponent and I agreed that the list I ended up playing with Alpha Legion, where you have all these shroud bombs and you just make targeting a mess, that ended up something successful as far as a narrative goes.
Cool. Yeah, I mean most of my previous lists were looking at units I liked, so I'd always wanted to build a Predator force. So I did the last time I went to Adepticon was the 12 Predators and 6 Vindicators. Recently, with the land speed or with the jet bike list I'm working on, it's more seeing the fast reaction force that have come from other people playing jet bike heavy lists, and I've been wanting to do that myself. And then the word bearers list I put together for the 3K for 1K, that one I got to looking at that list and I kept thinking about it. Now I really want to do it with Ultramarines, and I'm going to steal one of the accountability buddies, Alex's idea for Vexillas, but I'm going to use standards like I did for my militia, just full-size standards for all the squads. That list is really just kind of wanting to see giant squads in Spartans like on the covers of books. So just spamming out big units backed up by big tanks. That's kind of the idea behind that.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, probably the one that I picked that's the most lore specific to a specific battle in time was, and I've not looked at how this list is going to work in version 2.0, but for Adepticon last year, I built my word bearers list, and that was based around Argotol and the Shadow Crusade from the book Betrayer. And so obviously word bearers are iconic for their last Lacerated Sun drop lists, but you couldn't really run it with Argotol as the warrior, so I did a faux last Lacerated Sun list that was an orbital assault list. But so each of the at that point, Lorgar had taken and broken the companies up, so he had certain companies or certain sergeants and units that he didn't trust and certain ones he did, and so he sent all the ones that he didn't really trust to Calth, and then he kept back the ones that he thought, really were loyal and were the trusted units. And so I built the list around every unit in the army has a different chapter icon, right? So they're each different, handpicked from different chapters. And then the Argyle had the Varag Jal, which are his elite kind of honor guard units that served him. And so they all had silver masks to go along with his silver face when he becomes the demon form. I don't remember the name demon off the top of my head. Sorry.
Rom.
Thank you. And when I paint, I didn't get Argyle done, so I ran the list as a generic leader list. But when I get Argyle done, Argyle will have the silver face because I don't understand how anyone's not. I haven't seen anyone paint him up that way, and it's the only way they describe him in the lore in the books over and over and over again. Right. So that that army is very much a specific army built around a time and place. In the lore. That was built up from there. And then, I took plasma, which works out really good because when I get to them, that'll be the warp fire weapons that they have available in their list now. And then, it gave me a lot of the cool hobby ideas because using different decals for shoulder pads for every unit, to distinguish them being split off and, not just here's a company. It's units that are picked and chosen from different companies all coming into battle together at once, which gives you a little ability to have, some not army looking exactly the same, even though they're on the same army in the same battlefield. So that's kind of how I pick and chose that army for a theme and a concept and built it out. Unfortunately, I don't have a 3,000 point list for how it'll play in this version of the game because the null deploy drop pod list isn't exactly the same anymore, and I haven't spent any time figuring out how that's going to work with the new version because I've been focused on my Blood Angels.
Okay, makes sense. Here's my example. For my World Eaters, I built the entire force around the Battle of New Syria because I thought it would be something kind of cool. So I limited myself to only taking things that are actually listed in that novel, in the novel Betrayer, because I didn't think taking things outside that novel would actually keep the theme. So in the novel, they recommend or they talk about demolishers, land raiders, and rhinos are pretty much the only real vehicles that get mentioned. Demolishers somehow in that book seem to act like artillery pieces, despite being not really artillery pieces. So I limited myself to them. Dreadnoughts are in the book, and land speeders and bikes are in the book, both also being mentioned fairly heavily, along with destroyers. But I didn't build a destroyer unit because honestly, I don't really. The only destroyers I really have are a pack of the Red Hand destroyers, who I currently don't have ready, so I don't have them to throw out there. But if you'll give me one moment, I actually do have a list, and I just have to finish pulling it up. There it is. So my list was built entirely around the Berserker Assault and going with Blood Hunger for a Warlord trait. But Artificer Praetor on bike with a Paragon Blade, a command squad of 6 members with bikes, combat shields, everybody with a power axe, a Centurion who's a chaplain with a power axe, an apothecary on a bike with artificer armor and a power axe to roll with the Praetor, 2 contemptors, 4 other power axe artificer apothecaries, and then the meat and potatoes of the list would be 3 10-man despoiler squads with Vexilla, sergeants with artificer and fist and rhinos, and then 2 blocks of 10 rampagers with fists and artificer sergeants, and both the rampagers riding in Land Raider Proteases, and then 2 javelins because it fits with the theme. It's fairly mono build, mono function. There's not going to be a lot of shooting to it, but in my mind, from reading that book a couple times and having the audiobook, it's fluffy. It fits the actual theme of the list, and I don't think it's over the top for you to play with or for your opponent to have to deal with because there's nothing really super duper strong. I left the Red Butchers out because at that point in the lore, from what I understand and have read, the Red Butchers weren't really a big thing going on yet. So they weren't truly devolved enough for that to have occurred very much. And that was how I built them. That's the current incarnation and the current edition. Previous edition, things were different. I included no Rampagers, and I just had, I think it was 2 more squads in their place of, in essence, the spoilers. And then that time around, I had some vets in a termite and butchers in a pod. But I don't have them this time because that doesn't work with it. So there you go.
Cool. Sounds like a good list.
I think it'll be fun to see on the field, and I can reuse a lot of the stuff I already had rather than having to buy entirely new stuff to make a brand new World Leaders Army.
Yeah, compared to the fact that like my thousands, I'm like 1 or 2 purchases out from being able to realistically field my my Alpha Legion have been completely upended.
I've discovered that very well with my Sons of Horus that I'm sitting here trying to do. I'm not really taking any of the stuff that I took before, to be honest. I mean, before I was running Justarian, I was running the mass 3 tactical squads, 2 Contemptors, a Deradeo, an Arcus, and miscellaneous other bits and bobs. Now most of that has been entirely upended. I've got no Justarian in my 30K, in my 3K Sons of Horus list that I'm building after the Saturnine Gate incident. I've got no Deradeo, no Justarian, no Arcus, no tactical guys. I'm pretty much rebuilding the army from the ground up.
See, I haven't thought of anything regarding my actual list building yet. I've just been thinking more of like how I intended modeling everything. So my current force, as it is, how it's painted, is more kind of a latter half of the Battle of Calth, kind of like the rallying phase, where you have a whole bunch of Ultramarines and of different units, different markings, things like that. But it's all one big hodgepodge mess of ad hoc squads thrown together. But one of the things,
one of the list I built before the Predators was like a kind of Armatura where the Ultramarines were all mounted up and tried to get out as fast as they could to go meet up and fight a big thing.
Yeah. But with mine, it's mostly going to be, as it is right now, it's mostly standard infantry. Not as many vehicles, just it's not easy to get around as they would want. But one of the other things that I was thinking of, that I kind of did something for Adepticon a number of years ago, is more of an Imperium. Well, let me back up a little bit. At Adepticon, I did an Imperium Secundus list where I had core Ultramarines, but I also had allied in Dark Angels and Blood Angels. And kind of what I'm thinking now is something similar to that. Still, but I'm going to build it just as a standard Ultramarine list. Probably Logos Lectora, but I'm not married to that yet. However, when I actually paint everything, I can throw in, if I get kind of bored with what I'm doing, I can throw in an Imperial Fist here or Raven Guard or whatever. It's as all those different forces mustered back in Ultramar during that, the time of Imperium Secundus and everything else. You're going to have all these kind of random squads and bits and pieces from different legions that have found their way there. And I'm just going to incorporate them into my existing squads. That way, I don't know, maybe it'll look interesting. Maybe it won't, but I guess I have the storyline or the theme of it in my head. I'm just not sure exactly how I'm going to pull it off.
Yeah, it sounds cool. I mean, I've been thinking about doing something kind of like that with campaign badges and things like that, where you've got a bunch of guys from different campaigns, and they've all got the symbols on either their shoulder pads or on their knees or someplace, and that way they'll look like they're all from the same area, but they've got different honors and different things like that.
Yeah, because I mean, from the Pharaoh's book where you have Dantioch and Pollux, they're both there. There's contingents of both of their legions. Well, no, maybe not so much Dantioch, but there are Imperial Fists around. It just made sense that, I can have a squad of them, because all I have to do is just be a tactical squad. They don't have to do anything really fancy. So,
and now that allies are a lot easier to run.
Yeah. I'm not even sure I'm going to actually run actual allies, but it'll on the tabletop. I think hopefully it'll make sense.
Yeah,
It might just break it up a little.
it's easier to, instead of having to do like Shattered Legion or stuff like that, where you had to go and pick these certain units and do this certain thing. Now it's just pick an allied detachment, throw it in there, take a right of war if you want.
Yep.
Do I see Jack something?
You see what?
Jack.
On mute.
I am here, but my connection's really crappy.
Oh, welcome.
Welcome back. It's been a while since we've seen you.
Welcome, howdy. How everybody's doing?
Peachy.
And good.
Better than I deserve.
I'm here.
Sounds
And
like we're all doing better than Duncan because we don't have extreme pain in sensitive areas, so that's a plus.
yes, kidney stone's bad. Ulrich's hobby base is good.
Pop goes the monkey bad. So yeah, so if we want to, so since I threw out how I built my word bears, but I'm not actually building them this edition yet, and I'm not doing anything with my Ultramarines for this edition because I didn't know what was going on around Fomentarus and Locatarus, and just not sure what I want to do with them right now. I decided that I wanted a Siege of Terra army when the new edition came out, and so I decided that I thought nice bright blood angels were cool. I've always kind of thought the space vampire concept was cool, so I decided that's what I was gonna go with. Knew I wanted a whole bunch of dudes and a bunch of dudes with jump packs and to fly around and be the space vampires. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do till the books released. So I started looking through the books and reading in. I'm not sure competitively it's good, bad, and different, but I like the Day of Revelation list concept. And so the point is you have part of your army down on the table. You have a point on the battlefield you pick before you choose sides and deployment, and you pick a turn and between 2 and 4, and then everything deep strikes in that's not on the table into around that area that you picked on the table. And so as I went through and looked at it, I've kind of still massaging the list to be what the final version of the list is. But the basics of the list is there's going to be 2 big tactical blobs in a Spartan on the table to start. There's going to be a Kratos on the table to start. So that's your kind of 3 heavy choices. There's going to be, and then 1 each of the jump pack, Blood Angel special unit, so the Angel's Tears and the Dawnbreakers. I'm going to have a Praetor, which I'm going to talked about already. I'm modifying up the Zephon model, so he's not bionics. He's just going to be a regular dude, but he's basically going to be that kind of same pose with a hammer instead of a sword, because I want to do a Maul of Perdition. He's going to have retinue that'll be the wing jump packs, so I'm using the actual Sanguinary Guard jump packs for those guys, and then there's going to be a couple more Assault Marine squads. And for on the table, I also am going to put a recon unit together that's going to be with Nemesis bolters, so try and at least get 1 turn where hopefully they can pick out an augury scanner from a unit to help with preventing that reaction. And then the other thing that I really have liked from the time it came out is the I think it's the Incandius Dreadnought, which is the jump pack Dreadnought, which in this version just lets it deep strike in, so he can come in with all of the rest of the dudes coming in and the Dawn of Revelations deep strike unit. And so I'm still massaging the points to get to a final buildable list, because I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to arm the 2 special units and what I'm going to do with apothecaries and sergeant weapons and some of that stuff. Do you still do the artificer armor on sergeants or not? Is it worth the points? Some of that massaging for the 3,000 point list is open. The build will be 2 20-man tactical squads for the Spartans, but the reality will probably be, depending on how points massage out, that they may run 16, 17, 18 models, close to 20, not necessarily completely 20-man tactical squads. And so I've built that list, and that list is, I've got the Deep Strike Army, and I've only played that at one event, Adepticon, that was the null deploy drop pod army. This is a completely different Deep Strike Army. Other than one unit of 5 Locutorus, I've never used any Assault Marines in Heresy at all. So there's a lot of Assault Marines and semi-Assault Marines coming in. I think it's fits the theme of the Blood Angels, having some stuff there, and then the rest of the stuff swooping in, an assault and kind of that quick strike, having a couple of the specific units, mixing in perdition weapons, and then looking at, so a style of gameplay that's a little bit different. But then when it comes down to it, right, there's a couple things. So, in the old edition, you would have had, a bunch of Swords of Perdition. But when you start looking at the rules and thinking about coming up against Contemptors and Dreadnoughts and different things, I think I'm going to have quite a few Mauls of Perdition mixed in there, because they're, it's a decent enough weapon against some of the bigger toughness, heavy, multiple wound models like that. So, think about gameplay a little bit on that side too, right? Adding the recon squad in there to try and make them a little more survivable by taking away, a unit that can shoot reaction when you drop in and some of that stuff. That's kind of my idea for the list there. It gives me a lot of cool hobby ideas. I haven't considered exactly what I'm going to do, but I'm thinking like the Recon Marines might be a different color, whether that's a black and red with a lot more black to it or something along those lines to differentiate them. The Sanguinary Guard that run with the Praetor will obviously have very gold highlights. I don't think I'll go with a full gold armor the way they are in the 40K box, but they'll be maybe gold helmets and gold trim or something like that, versus the kind of more plain regular guys. So besides the angel wings on the jump pack, it'll set them aside. So that's kind of my thought on building that arm, starting from scratch with a concept that's not a specific battle, but I think it's very Blood Angels, and also will be a list that I think will look really cool on the table. And, I should be able to tweak here or there to make it be a fun army to play with and against, with that core built.
And that's kind of the point of what I was getting at with doing all this. It's not just an army that's fun for you to play, not just an army that fits fluff, not just an army that could, with decent luck and good generalship, be a winning army, but one that you think will be fun to play and that you think your opponent would be able to enjoy seeing across the table from them. So not like, a spam of Fomentaris and then backed up by a whole bunch of the shield and axe boys for the Ultramarines, if that makes any sense.
I only did that once.
No, see, I'm not talking about that list. That list was fun. That list was fluffy, and you couldn't make a single dangerous terrain test to save your life.
Save my life. No, I stayed. All my 2 land raiders died in the my deployment zone.
I know.
All this conversation reminds me of one more rules thing that I don't remember if we've talked about. Have we talked about the Xiphon and the Civil Air Patrol reaction yet?
Combat Air Patrol. Yeah, no, I do the same thing.
I think we've made reference to it, the fact that if you put a Xiphon on cap and your opponent doesn't have a flyer, then your Xiphon can never come in.
Yeah, but what about the others? That if you have a Fire Raptor and someone takes a Xiphon, you pretty much should never bring your Fire Raptor on the table, because you basically it's just going to get shot down anyway.
I mean, you're absolutely true on it.
And it's not just a Fire Raptor; it's potentially a Stormbird, almost any flyer, right? If they're shooting at full weapon skill with all their weapons, there's a good chance, better than not, that they're going to take out any flyer in a game before it gets a chance to do anything.
There was also the question on whether they got their the Xiphon even got its full ballistic skill, because the other thought was that it's all snapshots.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. As there obviously there's no FAQ, so what's the general opinion here and how that would be played?
As someone who doesn't own a Xiphon, has no intention of buying a Xiphon, and who tries to avoid flyers as much as possible, I like the idea of cap. Honestly, I really do. It's fluffy, it fits the game, and it fits the lore. But if I never see a Xiphon on the table, I'm fine with it. If that Xiphon stays in cap and the other person says, okay, well, I'll put mine in cap also, so that both of them are pretty much eliminated from the field, I think that's fine. But if it comes on and is shooting another flyer, I don't see any reason for it not to have Skyfire to be able to shoot at another flyer. The idea that it can't, I find ridiculous and insulting.
Yeah, well, if it in a normal shooting phase it does, it's just weird that it.
Yeah, in the reaction for it, I think it absolutely should have the ability to shoot another flyer at that point. I don't see why it wouldn't.
Yeah,
but then again,
its entire purpose.
But then again, you see other people having similar arguments about, for example, is Fury of the Legion 3 shots or 4? I mean, there's so much stuff that's ambiguous and open for interpretation.
So I get your point. So, it seems like they should have full shooting. But do you think it makes sense that, what's a Xiphon cost, right? Is 100 and some points, I think, right?
Sure, let's go with that.
Should you be able to negate any other flyer in the game by putting one of those in your list and saying all of a sudden my Stormbird with 20 dudes or whatever you can put in a Stormbird is going to get shot down more often than not, and all those dudes are taking strength 10 AP3 hits?
Yes, I think you should, because it is intended as an interceptor for anti-flyer fighting. It's not intended as a ground attacker. It's not like a Thunderbolt. It's intended specifically to hunt down other flyers. And really, Stormbird's a big, massive transport. I mean, do you think that using
the Storm Eagle,
yeah, the Storm Eagle's a big, massive transport. Do you think it makes sense for an F-15 to shoot down, in essence, a C-130? Yep, I certainly do.
But let's talk about points efficiency, right? And efficiency and ability to and them to sell big models and to get, so why is anybody going to buy a Fire Raptor? You would buy a Xiphon. You buy 2 Xiphon, right? Because if you assume that you're going to start bringing your Fire Raptor, the meta is going to be that everybody doesn't want to deal with Fire Raptors, so everybody's going to throw the 125 point Xiphon in there and negate everybody's Fire Raptor. So all of a sudden, a Fire Raptor is not ever worth bringing to the table because somebody's just going to shoot it down, right? And you can't bring your own Xiphon and a Fire Raptor, because then they're just not going to use it to shoot down the Xiphon, and they're going to wait for the Fire Raptor.
We said the same thing about Spartans. Spartans aren't worth taking because everyone brings a Lightning. I mean, it's last edition. So, I mean, it's just meta things. It's going to auto-correct itself in in a month or so.
Yeah, I don't really see it being a problem for long term. Given the vast number of armies that we're seeing picked up right now from new people coming in, and the small number of people we're likely to see with Xiphons to begin with, I don't really see it being an overblown issue. I really don't.
I have a Xiphon. It's never seen the table yet, but I have a Storm Eagle too. And my thought was, especially with 2.0, before the rules actually came out, is that I can actually have a unit in the Storm Eagle, and then the Xiphon is its escort, essentially.
I see that. I mean, I've got 2 Fire Raptors and I've got a Lightning. The Lightning's never even been finished assembled. One of the Fire Raptors has never even seen the tabletop. So I definitely see why people like them. I mean, flyers are cool looking. I just don't really see them being that big of a thing.
Yeah, and I've got a Fire Raptor and a Storm Eagle and a couple of Xiphons built. I've never put them in lists. Or when I do, they keep getting kicked out for cooler things.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point of it. I mean, how many flyers are you going to take when they can't hold an objective or really sit on anything once it's been shut off to protect it?
Yeah. Last edition, the Xiphon was just too expensive to really want to play, and now it's cheaper. It's a lot more tempting to take, and I don't know. I guess worrying about losing other models to something. I don't know. It's a game. I fully expect I'm going to be pulling models off in droves anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess the fact that the chances are they aren't going to get to do before you more often than not. If you run across someone doing that, is where I struggle with it being right.
Bring a Dorito.
I understand all my models are going to die. I mean, I'm the general, right? All my stuff's going to die one way or the other. But hopefully, it at least gets a chance to come out and shoot and do something before it dies. A horrible death.
I hear what you're saying, and I see where you're coming from. And yeah, I see that being a concern sometimes. But that's kind of the point. I mean, you pay your points, you take your chances.
Yeah, not everything gets points back. In fact, whatever I finish painting last is going to get blown up first. So I'm used to it.
So is Cap is just it's just a vessel for a different reaction, right?
Flyer only reaction. You declare this is flying Cap, and it literally waits for the other flyer to come on from reserve, and then it pursues on at the same time and gets to shoot first. Just like a dogfight, it's pursuing the other one down.
Well, that's what combat air patrol's for. It's for protecting aircraft carriers and things like that from incoming aircraft.
Exactly.
It's not flat-footed.
So then you may want to invest in some other cheap flyer to bring in before the other one, depending on what you want to do. I don't know. This is me not putting any thought into it, just going kind of off the cuff.
Or the other option that I'm personally leaning towards, buy more troops.
I have more troops than I can field.
Buy more troops.
I mean,
Okay.
That's like I said. There's a few reasons why I'm not messing with my Ultramarines right now, but one of the centerpiece models for my Ultramarines is a Fire Raptor, and so do I need to buy another one before I play them and bring them, right? Or not another Fire Raptor, but buy a Lightning or something else to go along with it, and then that's how I make up that army to make sure the Fire Raptor can actually come out and play. I don't know. It's it doesn't. I get it. Things like that are going to happen sometimes with certain models. It seems like that one's a little too strong off the cuff in the way it works. But
yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's one of those things that you're gonna have to kind of watch and see, like how many Xiphons actually get bought and brought, because it's still 100 and some odd points that someone's still gonna have to sink into for their army.
Yeah, right? It's a great answer. But the bigger question is, how often is it a problem?
Yeah.
We're looking at it from the point of view of the nail. I mean, you got to look at this from the point of view of the hammer as well. How often is the Xiphon going to show up? And when it does show up and it ain't got nothing to shoot down, it's still 130-odd point last cannon. That's not doing a whole heck of a lot because it's still a freaking aircraft, and aircraft aren't great.
Yep, they got to move, and they got to do all their aircrafty stuff. Yeah.
Yep. I can't count the number of times my Thunderbolts or Arvises just crashed because some dude was standing out in the middle of a field waving at them as they flew overhead, and they just exploded.
Especially with all the amount of interceptor we're going to have. And what we're seeing right now is mass autocannon fire, a lot of which is twin-linked. I mean, I don't expect a Xiphon's going to live past the turn it comes on. Yeah. I don't expect most flyers will live past the turn they come on. Well,
we've shot this topic.
Yeah, I agree. Anybody else have anything that we were thinking about discussing today?
I think we've covered it all.
Cool.
I've been Jacob, and I've been joined by
Dan,
Duncan,
John,
and Zach.
And we're glad that you've joined us. Remember, stay accountable to your hobby and your buddies. We'll see you next time.